I'm recused.
You're recused on that
Yeah,
too?
so it's not coming forward. Right?
Wait,
We don't have a quorum for
what do you review?
Trahanas.
Trahanas isn't, you just make a motion to continue that.
Yeah.
Okay. I can make that motion?
Someone needs to make.
I can make, can I make a motion, Bill, to,
She's recused.
if I'm recused to continue it? Okay, so, first hearing is Trahanas, Philip and Jennifer Trahanas as trustees of the Jennifer A. Trahanas Revocable Trust, Plot 14, Lot 31. It's an appeal by Bluffhead LLC, Micah Burley and Michelle Ann McBride of a decision of the building official issuing permit to Philip P. Trahanas and Jennifer A. Trahanas as co-trustees of the Jennifer A. Trahanas Revocable Trust for construction of a fence. Letter dated 5/14/21, permit number B21-153 dated 5/10/21. We are continuing this to January.
Yes.
Make a motion to continue this to the January 26th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The second hearing of the
Can you just pause for a second?
Yep.
Can you just tell me to let the witnesses know that they're still under subpoena, so
Okay, the witnesses for this hearing are all still under subpoena until the hearing is held to attend this January 26th meeting. Okay, all in favor? Great, okay. The second hearing of the evening is BI Harborview Partners 2 LLC, Plat 4, Lot 29, fire number 638, Corneck Road. Application from variance from sections 113C and 306C to demolish existing kitchen and construction of a 28 by 40 addition to a single family dwelling. For those of you who might be confused in the audience that we keep saying this over and over again, there was discrepancies in the site plan submitted by the applicant when we went to render a decision. So we reopened the application so that we could get corrected site plans because we couldn't make an accurate decision that we could hand to a building official to issue plans on. So.
Good evening, everyone. Again, Rich Hayes for BI Harborview Partners.
You're gonna, yeah, because it's a new hearing, right?
We're gonna tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to all you guys.
I do. So I, obviously trying to better understand what you guys are confused about on the application.
I can tell you.
Please do. That would help.
So in your site plan,
Yes.
when you're looking at the house, the floor plans,
Yes,
the original house,
yes,
and I may get this backwards, but
Okay.
more without it in front of me. The original part of the house, the measurements are 10 feet 6 inches. And in the addition, they are 10 feet, 10.2 feet. So the math, the calculations don't work.
so I think one is in tenths and one is in,
Yeah.
Inches.
One's decimals, yeah, whatever that is, the math language that is. And so when Judith was working on a decision that she was the one, she just kept coming up with, the numbers weren't working for us. They weren't making sense. So I think Jen asked you for a revised site plan that was consistent. And that we have not seen that, so.
I didn't revise the site plan. I have the same site plan that I submitted to you that we can review.
Okay,
I have an architectural floor plan that I've now color coordinated, but it's the same one that you've had. But I did change it into inches versus
Okay,
tenths. So that may help you.
that'd be great.
I'm happy to pass that on.
And is this, I didn't see this.
Robbie, just this,
Okay, so I have not, is this,
it's on Quickbase.
I can't find anything on QuickBase. So it's like basically,
Sometimes.
This is new,
I have not seen this. Okay.
That's because it's handmade.
right, okay.
So,
So you can decide.
Do we have this in a size that I can read?
yeah, we do. Believe it or not.
Fantastic.
And then-
Oh. Be careful what you ask for.
Well, I can't read those numbers.
We only have two. of these,
We're gonna mark-
so we're gonna share.
We're gonna mark,
How's that?
so are we going back to exhibit 1?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rich, we're starting, we're gonna submit this as exhibit 1?
Well, we'll do A.
Is do A, we'll do A.
We have it marked as A.
Okay.
It was exhibit A, I think, before.
Okay,
so.
exhibit A is, floor plan of the existing house and the new main house addition. I can read it now. Okay.
So I took the opportunity, not that I can read anybody's mind, but I spent some time going over the application to try to better understand what your issues could be.
Mhm.
You know, I heard about it on Two Guys. I read about it in the Block Island Times. And then obviously I talked to Jennifer as well. So when I first made this submission, we had gotten relief in September of 2020 for a different application. And in light of that, Jennifer had warned me that Mrs. Cernak was not here this evening, but, you know, likes to look at all the numbers very closely. So make sure you don't make any mistakes. So I in turn warned the architect and the engineer of those same items. And in filling out the application, we used numbers that were correct. They're all correct, but we used them with the old application and the new application so that it was complete. So nobody thought that there was anything nefarious going on. So I've cleaned up the application now so that it just reflects the current size lot, which is 64,000 square feet versus the old side lot, which is 56,000 square feet. And I'm happy to give you a copy of that to help you.
The application.
Yeah, well, I amended I didn't amend it. All I did was take out the references to the former application.
Yep.
So now it's a little clearer. I guess that's the best way I could put it. So I'm happy to give you that if that's something you think you need. In addition to that, I reviewed the site plan. And there's two pieces of this application that we have to discuss this evening.
Mhm.
The first is that the plans that I gave you a moment ago are 3.09 feet less than what the original application was, because I could not, under any way or circumstances, get them to align with this plan. And the 3.9 feet was essentially 3.09 feet was essentially a bump out over the garage doors. So all I did was eliminate it. So now the total GLA is 1,923. Let me just get this right so that we're not.
It's in here, okay. Okay,
1923.06 versus what it may have been was 1926.15,
for your footprint. I'm
correct?
trying to find the application, I'm sorry, I'm like.
Well, I
trying to
have
find-
copies of all the
Could-
applications here.
Could you
You
give
need-
me
If
one,
you need
please?
any of them.
And it's the revised with the, did you, Rich, with what you're just talking about?
Yeah.
In the original, this wasn't calculated, this bump out, this, the stoop, I guess, was, and now it's stone?
Right. It's always been stone.
Okay.
Never going to change.
Okay.
That's what it's going to remain. So one other additional item that I want to talk about is we had a discussion with the younger Mr. Landry the last time I was here in August or September. And it was about how you measure from the side yard where we need the relief. So it was his opinion that on the site plan, it shows two dimensions, one on the south
We need to
side.
submit that.
Sure. Well, you have this, but I'll give you another copy of it.
Exhibit B will be a site plan. You have to treat this like it's a new hearing, so.
That's all right. This is John Camo.
21521 by John Camo.
The younger Mr. Landry thought that we should measure the relief based off of the fact that this existing structure, he said you have to pretend it doesn't exist, and that you have to count that as part of the relief. My lawyer, who will address this in a minute if you need him to, if I don't do a good enough job, will tell you that based on some case law, that you measure it from what you actually need for relief, which is plus or minus 5.5 feet of relief is what I'm requesting. All the rest of this structure, as you know, is within the confines of the building area of the lot. So with that said, one of the things that I think that if we took it from a common sense, the house is here today, the house will be here tomorrow, whether we do anything here tonight or next week or next month or 2 months from now, the house is going to remain there. So it predated zoning. Obviously, it was built in the 1800s. So we know that it predated zoning. So therefore, those are the reasons that I believe that I'm only asking for 5 feet of relief.
On
and not
the
40.
connecting part.
Right, and not 40 feet of relief. Now, to help you with that, in the decision that we received from you back in September of 2020, the decision was written the same way that I'm describing what I believe is the way it should be written here tonight. So it was 21 feet of relief. It wasn't 40. It wasn't 40 feet of relief at that time.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to be consistent. I don't want to get snagged on any kind of a technicality here. And regardless, I'm really indifferent. But I think that the sensible thing is to follow the former decision.
Okay. Can you give me a copy of that application, your revised application?
Well, I did. So I'll give you a copy of this.
You did.
What I did was I redlined it to apply to this
Okay.
application.
It was in clerk face.
That doesn't mean that you should, I'm not asking.
Oh, no, I don't need a copy of the decision. I need a copy, I want a copy of the revised application, which I couldn't find in there.
Oh, yeah.
New that you're submitting right now?
Because then,
This is the revised application that you haven't seen. There's been 2 applications.
okay, come on.
Well, I can give you the one that you have.
No, I want whatever's the
I tried to
correct
do
one.
this to simplify.
No, I know, but I need what's corrected.
This is corrected.
Okay,
Yeah, butters.
so the butters haven't had a chance to see
That's fine.
that.
Yeah.
I said not even 10 minutes ago that 14 days prior to a meeting is when we request all these items. We're just seeing this for the first time.
I don't need to give this to you, Kate, because you already have this. So this information is in the original application. All I did was
Nothing's
clean-
changed.
Oh, no, all I did was clean it up. So I don't think that you make the decision whether you want it or not. I'll give it to you, and whether you make the determination that we buttered me 14 days and we have to go back in January, then so be it.
I'd just like to see an application, so I don't have anything in front of me. This is the original. So this, Rich, this is what we were trying to make a decision on, and so this was not matching up.
Hold on, I have to.
This, they weren't matching. That was our issue, like the numbers.
That's because I put when I was told to be fastidious about this, I followed the rules of the law. And I used the application that was previously permitted, and that's why you
This
see
is when
these
you
numbers.
change.
Right, that's why you see all of these numbers. That was the change that
Right,
the younger
remember,
Mr.
yeah.
Landry asked me to make. Correct. But can you see this? So the lot was 54, and now it's 64. So I had put those 2 numbers. I can understand how that could create some confusion. So it's a new application. I can give you the new I can give you another application, but it's
Well,
gonna have the same numbers, just less some numbers. So I didn't put the 56 on this other application that are revised, in other words.
You think because the lot change, this has the
I think what
original,
he's saying is that on the application, I wasn't here
Right.
last time, I think. On the prior application, just as an aid, because you had already decided the case favorably once, but without the addition of the lot to the north.
Mhm.
He provided the figures that you approved on the first application back in, I think it was September of
2020.
2020.
Correct.
But I was here for that application, I think we did it by Zoom, actually. Yeah, those figures, and then a slash, and then the figure that he is now applying from the lot with the new lot, with the lot as expanded, and the drawings of the new structure that he is proposing. It's slightly different from the old structure. So he had one column with the old numbers of the lot of the project that you approved, a slash, and then another column with the new numbers on the new. And I think he was doing that just to show there wasn't
Right.
that much difference, but if you thought there was a difference, you could measure it. Or if there was a difference,
so-
you could measure it.
I don't, yeah, I'm not seeing, I know what you're talking about, and I know that you're just, we've already approved something, this is the difference in what we have approved.
This
However, this we have to
application-
look, like, as you know,
Yeah.
we have to look at this like it's a whole new application that we don't even look at what's been approved before. We have to look at things
And
from,
that's why-
basically from scratch, and the, you know, the organics of it, so it's,
So the new application that he has given you tonight, it's the same information.
he hasn't given
I haven't given
us,
anything.
he hasn't given us anything yet.
Deleted all references, that first column from the first
Right.
application, gone.
Right.
Okay, well, why don't we submit the new application, because we're not gonna get anywhere. We're just gonna keep going in circles until, right?
Why are we doing a new application?
So Mark, it's not an exhibit, it's the
I
application.
think we should still mark it.
Mark it, okay, so exhibit C.
See,
If we take the application, can you still approve it tonight?
I don't think so.
I'm not gonna approve it,
No,
we're
I
not gonna be able
don't
to
think
approve
so.
something tonight, we have to talk about it, it's not,
Yeah. And then put it on.
no.
We have to come back in January then if we take this.
either way, you have to come back in January for a decision, or if you continue a hearing to review application material, he's just submitting tonight.
Okay.
This isn't something you
We wouldn't be voting on it tonight anyway.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're accepting this application the same.
This
But
is
then
the
if you
new
close it,
application.
review this, and you could be right back in the same situation where you're opening it up again.
Can we review this application when it's a new application? This is not what was advertised. Bill,
That's something, yeah.
Bill?
On advertising for abutters.
Just, I think you can review it, as long as you're not, deciding on it tonight. I think it's the A's, right? The number on the application I'm looking at for the principal structure, 1,920.06.
Right, correct.
That's still the number, so he provided some addition.
Okay.
That I don't think, it's jurisdictional, that provided that, anyone that came tonight, because of the notice, is already gonna know, because they're here or listening or whatever, that he's provided some additional detail to help us all understand the numbers. I don't think it's necessary to make this whole thing pack it up and do all this over again next month, hear it both times anyway.
And the advertising, you're saying, it's still under the C1.
Correct, yeah.
So that hasn't changed.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit.
So are we measuring it from here or from there?
He's saying that the relief,
Right, what
It's
is
just-
Bill saying?
it's
We
just-
keep saying the
Bill
relief is
hasn't
this,
answered that.
this 6 feet. That's what he's saying. And that's what, not what was.
Bill, as far as-
So bathroom, half bathroom, it's a change, slightly less building lot coverage. The half bathroom was not on the original application. 4.5 bathrooms.
But it's not changing, it's not changing the overall size though.
Plus, reduced floor area.
No, same.
But
I'm not aware of a half bathroom at.
Your application says 4.5.
4.5, right here in a highlighted yellow area.
Okay. I want it to be right, so I want to make sure it's consistent with the plan.
You have a half bath in the
It's always
original.
That's the meeting.
All right. Did you review your square footage against the ordinance? The large house ordinance?
I don't meet the large house or standard.
Okay,
But the answer to your question is yes.
okay.
Sorry.
It wasn't advertised. But
So it's, do we have a copy of that ordinance? Do you have the, is this the time when I asked the clerk's office to get, the town manager to get it a codified zoning ordinance?
how many times did you ask?
It's like our Christmas wish every year.
Why don't we follow up?
We can follow up on that part, yeah.
I gotta follow up on it. This is indicated that it doesn't meet the large house ordinance. Is it wall planes? Is it what, do you know what your issues are? Is there an argument why somehow this application is required to follow the large house ordinance?
I'm not aware that it is required to. I don't need it on a wall plane standard, I don't need it on a square footage standard. And there's 4 bathrooms in the house, one of which is a half bath, so that's a typo on it.
So it's a 3.5.
3.5
Okay.
bathrooms. Correct.
I'm a little confused, maybe if you could, you don't have to tell us now, but if this is gonna go forward, you're gonna have to request all of the relief that you need. And that large house ordinance wasn't just for new houses, it was for structures that would come to have certain size thresholds that beyond what was done by right, and that require a special use permit. In some cases, that beyond
When did that-
what the board can grant a special use permit for, so we've got existing development, moderate development that's being added to the created dwelling that requires a special use permit in order to exist in accordance with your design. That should be on the table here as part of this application.
So we're gonna have another hearing in January anyway, or a hearing.
Now, I think you might want to, in your application, set forth all the relief that you need now. Yeah. There was a question on this. I wasn't at the last meeting. Mr. Dees was at it. I do
Large
recall
house
the
ordinance,
issue
just
of large
recently.
house ordinance
Was this application before that?
Put out there by somebody.
I did.
Yeah, I distinctly recall that was always a question in the back of everybody's minds. And in fact, that was one of the issues that caused the reopening of the public hearing and re-advertising the public hearing. So that we can look into whether it meets the large house ordinance. Now, up until very recently, we haven't had, let's say, a fully functioning zoning review process in town. Several people have been sharing that load, doing a great job at it, but it hasn't been as robust as it will be quite shortly. But we do still depend on the applicants to identify the relief that they think they need, and that they determine that their architects and engineers determine the large house ordinance has been in place for a long time. There's no exception for going from a small house to a big house. And it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that it's something that's subject to review by the zoning board after the planning board has had a chance to review it, unlike the variances that, right. So I think process-wise, probably gonna have to reload it. I think you need a special use permit under that section, which, so there are other people on this board that are in agreement with that notion, that there are large house issues.
Do we have a copy
Can
of?
I just ask one
Yep.
question? Because this application came in, I think before it was, the ordinance was amended, we fall under the previous ordinance, correct? Or the new one, since it's technically according to that now.
No, I think you fall under it. What's in place at the time this application was submitted.
So we know that it doesn't have.
So
Yeah, no, I think-
we're submitted when?
Now, when it's re-advertised for additional information.
Yeah.
But the numbers have changed in that large house ordinance a little bit over the last few months in a couple of categories, building volume.
Do we have that?
one other. Because we have a complete application, this substantially is designed in place before those became final. You'll be governed by the large house standards that were in place before the recent amendment, just 2 months ago.
Right.
Which is the
Was the
2018 one.
amendment to allow a larger house or a smaller house?
Now, it allowed smaller, two different, dimensional standards.
I'll take a look at it.
It changes it to a special, just a check, the submittal checklist, changes it to a special use permit, so we make sure that everything is,
Nick, there's no need to take a look at it. We looked at it 6 ways to Sunday. So
Well,
I don't know where, if somebody has to tell me where this application meets that large house standard, because I've done the volume check, I've done the density check, I've checked all of those plane issues, building plane issues, and we were very cautious about making sure that this.
Maybe we're having trouble hearing each other through these masks.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that I thought I heard you say twice that the application does not meet the large house.
It does not.
Okay, so.
So
Can you tell me why it does not?
if somebody believes that it does, they have to help me understand why.
I'm not sure anybody believes that it does. We all, there are people that have doubts about whether the application meets the large house ordinance. That's why we were unable, the board was unable to make a decision last time. There were too many things that didn't seem right about the numbers associated with this application. I don't think we've come too far from that point to where we are at this moment. No fault to be assigned, just that it would be a good idea to get. I think you've got the numbers pretty clear, except for the half that, but
They're all right here on this application.
so you want us to show that we've gone through the exercise of determining whether the large house ordinance applies or not.
if you require, if it's within the ranges of dimensions for which a special use permit is required, we'd like to see an application for that, and
Right.
not be dealing with an application for a variance.
I think I don't have a problem with that. I think rather be here for all the leave at once. I think under the new member document, we can do that.
You can have both.
So we'll look at, I mean, I realize you looked at it, I think what they're saying is they want to see that we've undertaken an exercise, they want to see it on paper, so that everyone.
Request the relief.
Right, well, if we need to believe, I think he's right, we don't, but I haven't done the exercise myself.
No, and just to get this, I mean, I want to look, when I get an application, and I think this is what we all do, we all kind of sit down, and we look at the site plan, and we kind of look at it, and we look at it, and we, you know, we go back and forth, and we do some math. Simple math, but, nonetheless, you know, you look, and I can't sit here and look at these numbers, even though they might be almost exactly the same. I have to wrap my head around this. So I can't even say to you, no, it doesn't, you know, we don't fall into the special use permit for the large house, because I haven't had time to look at this. If that is that.
I understand the issue, but
Richard said that it doesn't.
No, I think it's backwards.
It's not, the large house standard is not applicable to this application. Because I've done the volume check on the volume of the inside of the house. I've done a plane check. We've done a density check, as far as coverage is concerned. So I meet all those standards. You know, and the architect do it, and the engineer do it, and it's on this application. There are, you can, you know, you want me to, I'll spend a minute explaining.
It says no residential structures shall have a wall plane in excess of 45 feet.
Right,
And I look here and the longest wall plane is 40 feet.
that's right.
No, shall be constructed with a building plane in excess of 75 feet. Longest building plane is 70.65. No case shall building footprint be in excess of 3,500 square feet. Square feet of living area is 3167, so it's under everything. And then the volume exceed cubic feet of 65,000, and the total building volume is 39,409.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for finding that.
I kept hearing you say it does not comply.
Yeah,
Thank you, Susan, for finding that.
all right.
Okay, so that still being said, I'd like to just be able to take some time to review and just
No.
no, we did
No,
not.
No, totally different application.
It's, since
It's not.
this board approved it, Mr. Hayes went and added land to the northerly side of the lot, so that there would be no need
Okay.
for any relief, and it enabled him as well to do some reconfiguring that makes the house a little better.
Okay.
It's a new application.
That's
So
really,
it's not the same.
in summary, the change, and, Mr. Landry, I apologize, but I actually did side with you, said I would do it, but, it's well, I would,
Generous.
it was like who's on first.
But I do have a question, and that relates to the relief on the right side relief. And I assume it's got to do with how it's measured, because you have 41.85 and then you got slash 5.13. Is it really 5 feet of relief, or is it really 41.85?
So in my eyes, it's 5.13 feet, but Mr. Landry thought differently, but that isn't consistent with the previous application and how it was approved. I'm only putting a 5-foot addition on the house to get.
And I don't think we need to get hung up on this. We know what you're looking for. I will say that I've seen more applications, I think before this board over the years, that if there is an existing non-conforming dimensional quantity, and the house is being modified in a substantial way, the existing and proposed is shown, and it's asterisk if it's an existing condition, and then note that it's an existing condition, but it still ends up in the relief requested, and the relief is automatic, it's a grandfather condition, but you know, whether it has to be done that way or not, what we know is where the existing house is. That's the one thing that hasn't changed, is the existing house in that dimension. And that the relief is anything new that you're putting into that area within the setback area.
You just made my case, so I concur. I agree with you. Just to be crystal clear.
Do you want to amend your application exhibit C for the bathrooms, because it does say 4.5, unless you wanted to stay that way, it doesn't.
Just leave it that way. I'll find another bathroom.
What is the size, the percentage of building coverage for just the house? Because I know the sheds don't count into the 3.65 is everything.
Yeah, and 2.99 is the percentage for the house.
Okay.
If you do that, it should come out
Okay.
perfectly.
No, okay, I see, I'm sorry, I see that here, okay. Any other questions? Okay. The audience, it's an open hearing. I know there's a butter that would like to speak, Mrs. Emsbo. We're gonna have you, she's still under oath, correct?
It's a new hearing.
It's a new hearing, so,
Somebody is swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So,
I do. Okay, on behalf of many neighbors in our Block Island, many remains opposed to this variance request. The opposition based on the fact that the applicant purchased the property with a clear understanding that the development he proposes would violate Block Island zoning rules. To allow the variance would now again invite ongoing violations of the zoning laws by other developers in the future. This variance application is even more egregious when this developer's threat to the integrity of our land and his neighbors is manifest on not one, but 3 adjoining properties. All 3 border or are close to our iconic, lovely Georgian swamp with views of the Great Salt Pond and conservation land. First of these properties is Plat 4, Lot 40, and it is the developer's part-time residence. It borders the Georgian swamp, has views of the Great Salt Pond, and has outstanding long-term violations with the Department of Environmental Management. And I quote from communication on November 8th, 2021. Mr. Hayes remains uncooperative regarding the required restoration of the wetlands on this parcel. We have not been able to move forward with efforts to resolve the case to date. The second property is Lot 4, Lot 28. And that was first, it's been a very long haul, but it was first issued an insignificant permit by the DEM. And then finally a town permit to build a large 1-family home in some of the most lush wetlands, pristine ponds, wildlife, and view sheds on the island. For more than a year, and after restoring a wetland violation by the DEM, the developer now for over a year has an excavated foundation for a large 1-family home and disturbed soil piles 10 to 20 feet high proximal to the wetland. The plan, although now permitted, is possibly still infringing on the wetlands of the Georgian swamp and needs to be reassessed. If completed as designed, one of our most iconic wildlife, nature, ecologically important, and amazing view sheds will be ravaged. And of course, the third property is the one we're talking about tonight. And I thank you for your attention.
thank you.
Thank you.
I speak to be clear that what's happening on other properties that the applicants own, it has nothing to do with this existing,
Exactly.
but thank you. Anybody else in the audience like to speak? Chris? Chris, it's a new hearing, so you have to be sworn in.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Christopher Blaine. I'd just like to say that I'm here in support of Mr. Hayes' application. He and his family have been good friends and good neighbors to us for 50 years that I know of. And the people that put the neighbor in neighborhood. And I don't have much to say. The last time I got scolded for what I was going to say. But I'd just like to say that I support Mr. Hayes, and I think that he does the work in a good way. And I don't think that there will be any impact whatsoever to the Georgian Swamp or the surrounding area and wetlands. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else choose to speak? Rich,
Sure, if you don't mind.
we're not, yeah.
So I took the high road the last time. Today I'm gonna drop down a notch or two, unfortunately.
Try not to drop too far.
I'm gonna try, but we have to be dealing with facts, not fiction.
Okay, and I would
That's
like
very
to just be
important.
specific.
You got
Stick to the lot that we are talking about this evening.
Okay, but Kate, in fairness to me, that's not what just happened here.
And I just explained to Ms. Emsbo that we do not take into consideration what's happening on other lots. We only can keep in consideration what's happening on this lot.
But at the same time, I want to make sure that everybody understands there's no violations on any property that I own on Block Mountain at this time.
That's great.
So that, I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
That was less than a couple watches.
That was good. Anyone else? Okay, I'll make a motion.
Second.
Two minutes. And close. I could, I mean, because I'm just gonna come do the same thing that we did last time, and if it doesn't,
We're looking at, so when Richard talked about the house complies with or house ordinance, I think he was looking at the maximum limits. I'm just going and looking at, there's a 2,000 square foot maximum building footprint. Under 306E,
but the house is 19.
well, it's all under 10, maximum, number 10, it says maximum building footprint, all structures.
All structures.
Jen, is that the 2018 or is that the present one? Because there's been discussion that this application may have come in before the present one.
This was the
2000, oh, you're saying it might not meet that one.
right, well,
Okay.
I'm not totally sure because the way that. That's what I'm looking at right now. I
Okay,
just don't want to see him end up having problems after we close.
sure, sure.
It's just, it triggers the special use permit. It's under 306. And it's an individual building footprint in excess of 2,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Right, but this is the, right, are we talking about the entire, the existing and proposed?
Well, it's an individual building.
Oh, yeah, that's.
I would think it would be the
it's only
total.
gonna be
The
one-
total, it's gotta be the
That would be
total.
the total.
At the end of the day, it's gonna be one building.
Right.
It's one total, it's,
1,923.06 square feet.
and this,
Alright, so what is the 2,300 square?
that's the
That's
sheds.
including the sheds.
And the sheds are
Ah.
separate, so you don't have a
So they just
single,
answered this.
yeah. Well, so if you don't have a single dwelling unit that has square footage, building footprint greater than 2,000 square.
That is correct.
So we don't have.
Yeah.
I mean, that was pretty clear from the principal structure at 1923.
Okay, am I good to close?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to
Second.
close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Gotcha, okay.
So
Do you have, Jen, you have this mark?
I think you can do the small one.
So this
Want the
is,
small one or
this
the big-
is, no, mark the big one. 'cause too hard to read that one. That was A, and then the site plan was B, and then the application was C. Okay. What do you want me to do with that?
Whatever you want.
What you got it? Paper bag lady. Okay, I lost me.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Nick. Okay, the third hearing of the evening, I am recused from, so Bob's taking over.
I'd like to open the public hearing for number 3, Masiello, Mark, plot 15, lot 132, fire number 1997, Gracie's Cove Road / Old Dunn Road. Application for variance from section 306C to demolish an existing single-family dwelling and 2 sheds, construct a single-family dwelling, accessory residential structure, pool, accessory structure gym, accessory structured studio, and an accessory structured garage. Somebody representing applicant?
Good evening, Joseph Priestley representing Mark Masiello.
Okay.
The matter before you this evening is an application for sideline dimensional variances to construct a single-family dwelling unit on Mr. Masiello's lot on Dunn's Cart Road. The lot is a pre-existing developed lot of record in the residential A zone containing 82,107 square feet of land. It is unusual. It is an unusual lot for several reasons. The first is that it is long and narrow through the area in which building is possible. But since it widens at Dunn's Cartway to 200 feet frontage, it does not qualify for automatic relief under section 113E2C of the zoning ordinance, which it would if its narrow width continued all the way to the Cartway. The second is that it is quite high and any building on it could loom over the adjoining developed lots of Joe and Kimberly Harris and Andrea Van Lent, disturbing their privacy. Third is that it contains a significant wetland, which, together with the required location of the OWTS near the front of the lot, limits the buildable area to a small area in the eastern half of the property, about 200 feet deep and 107 feet wide. If the 50-foot setback requirements are not varied, the buildable area on the lot is a 200-foot long strip of land about 7 feet wide. The fourth relates to Mr. Masiello's design of a very low house with accompanying outbuildings situated in a manner to be least intrusive to the neighbors. The house he has designed is not a house which exceeds the threshold standards which would require a special use permit. It is not a large house, which in at least one way is unfortunate. Your zoning ordinance in section 406G1 allows you, in the case of larger houses, to grant a variance for a yard setback as recommended by the planning board to provide more appropriate siting of the structures on the lots. I think you'll see that the plan Mr. Masiello developed most appropriately locates the buildings on his lot. To grant the variance he's requesting, you must determine that the requested relief is due to the unique circumstances of the subject land or structure. I think you'll find that the narrowness of the lot satisfies that requirement. You must also determine that it was not caused by any prior action of Mr. Masiello. The lot's pre-existed zoning. He bought an existing lot that was already developed. It's never been divided since zoning was in place. You must determine that the relief requested will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance or comprehensive plan. He proposes a single-family dwelling in the residential A zone. The proposal is consistent with the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan. The way he has designed the house is sensitive to the natural and developed landscape. You will see Mr. Masiello has taken great care to keep his neighbors informed of his plans and has solicited their input. His immediate neighbors approve of his proposal and recognize it is far more appropriate for this site than other potential plans. You must also determine that the relief Mr. Masiello is requesting is the relief necessary to remove the hardship which would result if you denied the sideline variance. He cannot build a house on the property without sideline relief. Given the peculiar shape of his lot, he would qualify for automatic relief in the long, narrow area where the building is possible, except for the quirk that the lot flares out to 200 feet on the other frontage of Dunn's Cartway. The average width of his lot in the building area is 107 feet. That were the frontage under the zoning ordinance, the building official would be authorized to grant sideline setback of 27 feet, which is 100 over 7 divided by 200 times 50, or 26.75, and he's required to round to the nearest whole number. Examination of Mr. Masiello's site plan shows that the setback he's requesting for the main house and studio is 28 feet 3 inches from the boundary, and southerly boundary, and 26 feet 6 inches from the northerly boundary. The proposed guest house and outbuildings are set back 2 feet 7 inches from the northerly boundary, and 25 feet 5 inches from the southerly boundary. There are 2 existing outbuildings located on the southerly boundary that actually encroach on the neighbors to the south. These will be raised and not be rebuilt if the relief that he's requested is granted, thus increasing his 0 setback to 25.5 feet on that boundary. Mr. Masiello has designed what his neighbors, Jim and Lisa Lilly, describe as the modest house. They state that, and we have a letter from them in the record, we appreciate the design and overall aesthetics, its modesty, its oneness with the landscape, and its modesty with the surrounding environment. Mr. Masiello would explain just how the house was designed with the specific landscape in mind. The house is located on a lot on which any house to build would require sideline dimensional relief. This is not the case of a low house requiring more dimensional relief than a taller house to obtain the same living space. Its design is clustered in such a way that the extent of the sideline relief required is not significantly greater than would be required to build a much larger, a much higher, more conventional house. With that, I'd like to start with Tom Principe, who's Mr. Masiello's engineer and surveyor.
Yes. No.
I'm sorry. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and that's what-
I do. Again, for the record, Tom Principe, Principe Engineering Company.
Mr. Principe, what's your occupation?
Registered professional civil engineer.
Were you engaged by Mr. Masiello to survey his property on Graces Cove Road and prepare a site plan for his variance application? Were you engaged to design an on-site wastewater treatment system for the new house he hopes to build?
Yes.
I'd like to show you an aerial photograph which we filed and ask if you are familiar with it.
Yes.
Can you tell the board what it is?
This is an aerial map of our client's property on 997 Grace Cove Road.
And can you describe the property based on that area?
Yes, again, it's an existing structure on the property that's in significant disrepair. There's coastal wetlands off to the west. We did some soil testing with TNS that has been approved off on the front portion of the property itself. And currently our application is with the DEM, I believe it has recently approved.
Like to ask if the mark applicants want. And did you also prepare a plan for the application entitled zoning variance plan for AP 15 lot 132-997 Grace Cove Road in the Shore of Rhode Island.
Yes, sure.
That plan last amended September 30th, 2021.
Yes,
And it consists of 3 sheets,
that's correct.
a cover sheet, an existing conditions plan, and a development plan. Is that correct? Is this that plan?
Yes,
Same thing we have in the file.
Anything you want that applicant's two, please? And is that the plan that you showed on
Yes.
the board?
that's correct.
Would you describe the property by reference to your plan?
Yeah, sure. We have property as discussed this evening, it's about 1.8 acres of land. The western portion of it is wetlands. We had our biologists go there and delineate the wetland edge for us. We had DEM soil testing for the onsite wastewater treatment system in the front portion of it. The property itself has some sloping terrain on the front portion, which would be the easterly side from Old Dunn Homestead Road, and then also down to the west, it is sloping down towards the wetlands. So there's only a small portion of the actual property with the topography that we could actually site the house itself. And then with the geometric configuration, as our legal counsel stated this evening, it makes it a queue up spot for our onsite wastewater treatment system. So that's what triggered us to design the system in the front of the property, which leading the house towards the back where the existing structure is now.
You also, part of this, you did the soils,
That's correct.
soils evaluation.
Correct, yes.
And soil evaluation.
That's correct, yep.
Great.
That's quite as many.
Four pages. Sally, it's 4 pages.
And then the soil analysis says you did dictate where you had to build the OWTS.
That's correct, yes.
And have you indeed prepared an OWTS plan,
Yes,
which you have submitted to DEM?
correct,
You're waiting for?
correct.
Does the OWTS plan, does the onsite wastewater treatment system repair for 997 Grace Grove Road, 1815, lot 132 in New Shoreham, dated 7/22/21?
That's it, correct, yes.
On the plan. There's the system on the plan. System on the plan. No. Yeah. 40 feet from. Joe, where is this septic system located? I don't find it on this particular plan. Okay, the plan that I have, do I have one in here?
Do you want to see applicant?
Yeah, okay.
Sure. It's depicted on this plan, which should be part of
No, it wasn't on the site plan.
Maybe you look at.
Looking at the zoning variance plan.
Okay,
Okay.
do you want to choose 3 or 3?
No, this is, I got 2 of 2. Okay, but I have it anyway, so.
Okay.
She just gave it to me. Okay.
Referring to the original conditions plan. Not this one, but the earlier one.
Yeah, no. Sheet 2, existing.
That shows the existing, the location of the existing house.
Correct.
And does it also show the location of the 2 existing sheds on the property?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, along the southerly boundary, yeah,
Basically, approximately 1/3 of Mr. Marcello's property and encroaching on the adjoining property.
correct, yes,
Those are the sheds that this is granted will be removed.
correct.
Going back to your site development plan, if you would.
Sure.
So, does this plan show the building envelope that would be allowed if the no variances were granted?
Yes, that's correct. Yes,
And
very narrow.
what's the average width?
It goes from about 7 feet to about 12 feet in width, overall width.
Towards the water. My sense is, that towards the water, you have about 30 feet down towards the 200-foot setback.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
then up towards Dunn Cartway.
Yep.
It's probably 50 feet,
Correct.
but then it narrows because of the lot, it narrows conspicuously all the way back.
Correct.
So if you were attempting to put structures, more than one structure and so forth, you'd be confined by that long narrowness. So there's certainly peculiarities about the lot, that's for sure.
Yeah, touching on Bob's comment, could you go over the grading and the slopes that further confines the building envelope real quick?
Yeah, so again, the grading and the slopes, right now, again, we have a pretty steep grade coming up to the driveway itself, and then there's a level area at the summit of the hill, again, this is a big hill here, and then it slopes east, we'll call it, toward the street, and then it slopes west towards the ocean, all right, and then, right now, the existing building is, existing conditions plan is a little bit cleaner on this, because this is what's here now, there's an existing shack, we call it, cottage with an existing deck that sits kind of into the slope itself. And then up on the top of the hill is the existing driveway itself. So there's some very, very steep grades. As you can see, these contour lines are very close together. That usually indicates a very steep grade. So it's very difficult to do anything in here with relative to the building or the on-site wastewater treatment system. It is a little bit, the grades are a little bit shallow in here. As you can see, they're spaced out a little bit more. It's not, again, flattened by any means, but this is probably at least a 12 or 15% slope here. But again, based on the soils in the envelope and the existing conditions, this was the most suitable part of the property for the on-site wastewater treatment system, which is the front here, as it was designed. So you can see this a little bit clearer. Is the building envelope is this line here? So you can see this pinch point midway on the proper end of the parcel. It opens up kind of in the front, and toward the back, it opens up a little bit more. But again, on this pinch point, based on the geometric configuration and the overall lot width itself, if you were to have a 50-foot setback on either side, you'd be left with maybe 10 or 12 feet along this main strip, which is where the main building section, is ideal for this site.
Thank you.
Now, to continue off on that, the guest dwelling, the pool, the garage, and the terrace. That goes from about 64 feet to about 53 feet. But for those structures, it goes from 64 to 53. Now, to the east more, where that 50-foot setback is, it goes from 53 to about 46. So it's lesser, correct? So there's only about a 7-foot difference there on the east side of the 50-foot setback
So
towards the cartway.
Towards the cartway.
towards the carways here? Yes. Right.
So it's 11 where the proposed guest house pool is, and then it's only about 6 or 7 there.
Here we go. So on the existing conditions plan, yes, I'll draw right here. Here's the existing building envelope, right?
So it gets
Okay.
larger towards Dunn's
Correct,
Cartway.
yeah, it opens up, yes. Yep. Visual report. That's the existing building envelope.
Wow.
In that area of the east, that's where you designed the OWPS system.
Correct.
Why did you choose that location?
Based on the topography and the soil, so that was the best spot, and it was furthest away from any of the freshwater wetlands.
If you don't mind, on that plan, can you draw us the existing house stories right now?
Oh, yeah, sure, it's hatching
I
gray.
just wanna see, I wanna see.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
So it's already non-conforming.
correct.
I just.
Yeah.
What's the frontage on it?
It's 200 feet frontage.
Yeah.
Which is why, if the lot is continued straight out, then the building official could have granted relief without us requiring us to come here based on frontage. But since it flares, we're not entitled to that relief, and we're sitting. and we're here-
Because of the dog leg and the dog leg towards the water. You mean?
Sorry.
Because of the dog leg towards the water?
No, because of the frontage. All the way through here
Yeah.
is pretty straight, if we continue straight up and not flare to the 200 feet, the building official under the ordinance could have granted relief
Correct.
proportionate to the front, you know, the 100 feet to 200 feet, you can 50% relief.
Sure,
It's slightly more like 107, 110.
but because you got 200 feet, you can't.
Yeah, do that.
And my sense is that if you built a house in that closest area, okay, and then did accessories or whatever down the end, if you built it on that closest area to Dunn's Cartway, my thoughts would be is that you'd be building to maximum height because of the hill that's there.
And you also have septic system issues because
Correct.
you have a septic system closer to the wetlands and the soils that weren't as used, weren't as good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Would you also assume that this is the most least disruptive to the ecological impact in this lot?
Oh, yes, again, I don't know if
I
you've
don't
had a chance to
care about
review
that.
the architectural
Yeah,
plans,
I did.
but
I did
it's
too.
a very shallow, I mean, which I'll leave it complicated to, but it's a very shallow profile, very low house that's naturally built into the slope. You'll see on our proposed plan, we don't have a lot of structural retaining walls, proposed contours. We're not coming in here with bulldozers, which some people might just come in here and take this hill out and cut this whole thing down and just flatten it out and then put the house. This, we're actually not even touching any of the existing topography. We're gonna modify it slightly, but there's gonna be no significant changes there. And we're gonna be very sensitive to the existing vegetation that's there, so it's gonna be built into the natural.
It's my understanding that this is what the planning board is pretty much hoping for.
Sure, multiple small buildings, of course.
So that they're low and there's multiple buildings. as
Right.
opposed to one.
In fact, that was the irony. I think if we had done it before the plan, we had a large house, we could ask the planning board to tell you that.
Right,
We didn't do a large house, you can't.
right.
It looks like it's a lot going on what you first look at, this is such a little cubes, and one bedroom in the main principal building.
Yes.
One bedroom in the main house and only 3 bedrooms in the back property.
Correct.
That's a three-bedroom system?
So it's a 3-bedroom septic, yes, correct.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we're gonna have, I believe, 3 bedrooms scattered on the site itself, but again, the main dwelling house is only has one, again, a massive bedroom. Okay.
One kitchen, right, in the main line.
Right.
I was gonna ask you now, could you refer to the site development plan, go through the buildings and describe them and their approximate sizes?
Yeah, sure. So again, according to the multiple buildings, we have our proposed principal dwelling.
You're referring now to this chart that's on exhibit 2, correct?
Yeah, exhibit 2, again, zoning variance plan sheet 3 of 3 is what I'm referring to. We have a set of calculations on the right hand side of the page called lot coverage, building coverage. What we did is we went through what's existing out there and what we're proposing with maximum lot coverage. Proposed principal dwelling itself, which is the main dwelling with a 1-bedroom, is approximately 1,900 square feet.
So that includes overhang, so it's not-
Correct. So my numbers as a site engineer includes the lot coverage, so all the E's and lot coverage calculations. So the actual living space itself is actually much smaller than 1,900.
Or they did approximately 1,300 square feet.
Correct, it's about 1,300 square feet, which is why it's a one bedroom. There's the proposed guest dwelling with one bedroom, which is approximately 460 square feet, very modest. The proposed pool here is about 300 square feet. There is going to be a small 210 square foot gym off of the pool. There's going to also be a garage to the north side of the proposed pool, which is going to be 440 square feet. And also a studio here, as you can see, which is off of the main principal dwelling, which is only 260 square feet. And then my numbers, again, from my standpoint of view, I have 1,900 square feet for the principal dwelling, and we're at about 2.3% for the lot coverage, which is under 3%.
Can I just ask a question? You mentioned the guest dwelling. Are you proposing 2 dwellings on coverage?
They're not, no, they're not.
Accessory.
They just said.
Yeah, accessory. And there's no living space in the garage
No,
or the gym,
no.
okay, or the studio,
No.
no living space.
No.
And those accessories are within the 25-foot setback. There's no relief, setback relief for any of those.
They all require relief from the
Yes.
50-foot setback. The one closest to the wall is 25 and a half. So
Yeah, so
the most we require for a structure is on the southerly boundary, which is 25 and a half feet from the line. And on the north, we're 26.
all structures are exceed 25 feet.
Joe, if this didn't have 200-foot frontage, under the relief that the building official would give, what would the dimension be for relief to the side
I
setback?
computed at 107 divided by 200, but it may be at 107, it would be 27 feet.
27 feet, and you're
And we're looking for 25 and a
you're
half.
looking for 25 and a half, okay. What's the width at the narrowest point
The width of the actual lot.
of the lot at the narrowest point? It looks like,
About 110 feet.
yeah, okay,
So that would be 110 divided by 200.
correct, so it would be what?
Still like 27 feet.
About 27 feet, okay, okay. I think that in keeping with what planning has wanted, in terms of rather than one large structure, okay, smaller buildings, and considering the width of the lot and the locations of where that middle of the lot is, and the slopes, that, I don't know, I like the plan.
Don't have any more questions from Mr. Principe. Mr. Massiello was here to further describe the plan and the house itself, and how it was designed, and why he designed it the way he did. Thank you, Jim.
Oh, Bill? Oh, you want to swear him?
Just swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do, and my name is Mark Masiello. First, thank you very much for hearing my application, sir, very much appreciated.
So the site is an interesting site, isn't it?
It is, it's both very beautiful and also has challenges. It's an elevated site facing west, so it has western views and sunsets. It's a very small footprint of where to build the house, which in the shape of the lot makes it challenging. There's a lot of vegetation. The highest point on the lot is 66 feet above sea level, and it's a natural sandy dune, which is something we are aiming to preserve. But it's a beautiful site.
Got a couple of photographs. Did you take these?
Yes, I did.
Would you describe to the board what they are?
Yes, they're existing photographs or photographs of the existing site as it appears today.
the large building that's by, well, the building by itself, no other building, is that the existing dwellings?
Do you have this? I just want to make sure. Okay, so yeah, so this is the existing dwelling, which is a shack. It's very simple. There's 2 rooms. There's a living room in the bottom and then 2 bedrooms in the upper floor. It's actually quite inspiring, the simplicity of it. Here you'll see the natural dune. This is the highest point on the property. And in the second photograph, you will see these are the 2 outbuildings that are right actually on the property line, which we didn't know about until we had the survey done.
Exhibit 5 and 6.
5 and 6, yeah. Could you explain to the board your thought process as you began the design of the house on this lot?
Yes, it was very much inspired by the simplicity of the existing shack. And that kind of ran through as a theme as we worked on this design of that's before you today. So I wanted to create a house that would feel small and intimate and be modest in scale. We also wanted to have a house that was respectful of the topography, something that fit into the landscape as opposed to changing landscape. And finally, while the site and the lot are narrow, there's a lot of privacy on it. And I wanted to try to preserve that privacy both for myself as well as for the neighbors. And that was another theme that ran through our design objectives.
And did you engage an architectural firm called Lundgaard and Cranberg Studio to design the house?
Yes, I did. It's an architecture firm that's based in Copenhagen, Denmark, and Lena Tranberg, who's one of the principals of the firm, is the lead on this project for me. You might ask why did I go to Denmark to find an architect? I would imagine that'd be a question. So let me preemptively answer it. I have a business that is involved in mid-century modern furniture design and an office in Copenhagen. So I spend a lot of time in Denmark, and I a fan of Danish architecture. It's about simplicity, modesty, and high quality. And so I decided that I thought it would be interesting to interview architects in Denmark for this particular project. And when I met Lena Tranberg, in her presentation to me, she showed me her own house, which is on the coastline of Denmark. And if I were to show you a photograph of that house, you could mistakenly think it was in Block Island because the topography is very similar. The vegetation is very similar. They deal with the same challenges that we do, which very high winds, as an example, particularly in the winter. It's not a coincidence that the first wind farm in America offshore is here, and Denmark is a leader in offshore wind, so they know about wind as we do. And her design was I knew that she would understand what I was trying to create here in Block Island, which is why I hired her.
In a series of sketches entitled Plat 15, Lot 132, Block Island House, variance submission. Lundgaard and Cranberg Studio, date 13 July 2021, consisting of sheets 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. Are these the plans she described?
Yes,
She prepared for you.
she did prepare these.
Looking at the front, the first section is the elevation of the main house. What is the maximum height of the main house?
So the house, the maximum height is at the top of the roof line of the main house is 70 feet above.
Not above sea level. What is the height?
Oh, it is 12 feet.
So you're talking about a very low lying house.
Yes. This, make sure we're all,
Why don't we have this marked applicants?
Okay.
6, 7. I think you have that.
so one of the things, just while he's working on this, I'll continue, but one of the things that we did was the house is designed where the roof lines are all follow the slope of the topography. And the idea of it was to nestle the homes, each of the structures into the landscape and to position them such that the wind would come, which is prevailing is from the west, particularly in the winter, would come up the bluff and kind of the structures rather, would sit in the slipstream of the wind. And the wind was a very much a major consideration in the overall design of this project.
And to deal with the wind, is that part of the reason there are substantial overhangs, which is why although the footprint of the main house is 1,900 square feet, the actual living area is only 13.
Yes, the one of the things that was considered was not to have a giant wall facing the ocean of glass, which would disrupt the wind as it came up the bluff. So the idea was to really hunker down with these sloped roof lines. And the overhangs are also meant to create some protection from the afternoon sun so that we don't need to cool the house very much during the summer.
I'll show you sheets, two other plans by London Garden Transfer, sheets A51 and A52. Do these show the floor plans of the buildings of the main house and the guest house?
Yes, they do.
Applicants exhibit 8 and 9.
So as you look at the floor plan, the main house is simply 2 rooms, a kitchen and a living room. Each are roughly 400 square feet in size. And then there's a single master bedroom that's attached to the house. And again, this was very much inspired by the simplicity of the existing shack that was on the property when I purchased it.
Now we have sheet A10, which is the east elevation west of the main house, and A12, which is elevation north. These prepared for descriptive purposes. Can you explain to the board what they show?
Yes, so these 2 renderings give you a sense of what the new proposed structure, main house, would look like compared to the existing shack that's there. So we are really taking the house down from an elevation perspective.
10. Applicants exhibit 10.
And there's 2.
10 and 11.
Have you discussed the proposal with your neighbors?
I have met personally in person and spoken with each of my neighbors that are above the property and are adjacent across the street from Dunn's Cartway, actually on multiple occasions each, and showed them my plans and my intentions and took into consideration any concerns that they had raised.
I have a letter written to the land use administrator from Joe Harris and Kimberly Harris. Are they your neighbors in the immediate south?
They are.
I was going to have you read it to the record, but let's spare them a little bit. Explain briefly what they say.
You know, essentially what I discovered, and it's not, I suppose it's not the coincidence I would have thought, but I wanted the structures to be low because it would preserve the privacy and intimacy of being at this site, which is quite elevated. And I thought that if I built something high and tried to maximize my views, all of a sudden I would see how many neighbors were around me. It turns out my neighbors feel the same way. They like the idea of it being low so that they don't see me. If I had a home and positioned it at the highest point of the property and went up 2 or 2.5 floors, I would be looking down onto the Harrises and I would looking down into the Van Lents, and I would become a central point of the pastoral views of the Fast who live across the street from me. So I think, our trying to be sympathetic to the landscape also was sympathetic to the interest of all my neighbors.
This is the letter, an email dated October 5th, 2021 to Jennifer Brady, land use administrator, from Joe Harris.
Edition.
13.
13, sorry.
Yeah. And a similar letter from Jim and Lisa Lilly.
Yes, I did.
And are they located maybe north of you, beyond the Van house?
Yes, they are just on the other side of Grace's Cove Road, at the end of Grace's Cove Road.
And we've said before, but confirm on the record, if your relief is granted, the two houses, the two sheds that encroach on your southerly abutter, which has been there, seems like eons, would be removed.
Yes, that's correct.
And so that basically your southerly setback is going to increase from 0 to whatever it is.
Yes, that's correct. One other point I just wanted to make on the design of the home is, I mentioned the wind. I personally, I like to come to Block Island in the winter as much as I do in the summer. And the wind can be really strong, obviously, in the winter from the west. And so part of the design was to create this courtyard right here. So that, if there were a day in the winter and it's 40 degrees or 50 degrees and the wind is strong, if you're on the east side here, you could actually enjoy being outside. And if it's not a windy day, you could be on either side of it. This was part of this design, is to create an outdoor space that was protected from the wind year round.
Now, as part of the design project and creating the OWDS, you've had to do some trimming and some vegetation on the east side, is that correct?
Yes, to do the site testing, there's just been trimmed and we cleared some of the brush from this area to get a sense of where the buildings would be. The intention is to leave Dunn's Parkway. So my goal would be for people to drive that Dunn's Parkway and hardly notice, if notice at all, anything that I'm doing this project would be through. And this vegetation would remain, and I think this building is about 100 feet from Dunn's Parkway, but we would continue to plant vegetation to create a shield and privacy from Dunn's Parkway, anybody past Dunn's Parkway, as well as the fast stand who live across the street.
I have no further questions from Mr. Mastiello. I would like to ask, I forgot to ask Mr. Tristan one question, I'd like to call it that. Actually, you're still under. Will the development as proposed result in any increased drainage or runoff onto any adjoining property?
No.
Will the development as proposed result in any increased drainage or runoff onto any adjoining property?
No.
Can you explain why?
Yeah, so again, we're subject to DEM and CRC permitting, so again, DEM permit pending. Again, hoping for a favorable outcome this evening. We would have to then proceed to the CRC folks. And again, one of the prerequisites for the CRC is any increase in runoff has to be mitigated by an offsite drainage system in the form of fire retention, deep galleys and whatnot. But again, just confirming and answering the question, the answer is yes, we will have a drainage mitigation system to collect and treat and mitigate all the stormwater runoff generated from this construction.
I know further questions. I know further witnesses.
Bob, you want to know?
Yes.
The one from Mr. Van Lent and then the one that you have right there.
Where's the one from Ben?
It was your email. Yeah, so you don't have to mark them, but you should.
Read.
Yeah, well, no, I don't.
Okay. I'd like to mention that we have a letter from the FAS, who are neighbors. And we have one from Ben Lant.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't see the one from Ben Lant. But,
I don't think you're marking them, right? Because they're not applicants. It's noting.
I'm noting it. And everybody on the board seen those?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Anybody on the board have questions?
Yeah, I had a couple questions for Mark. In your application, you noted that you're requesting the variance due to the unique geometric configuration of the lot with the setbacks and the wetlands. You obviously knew the property when you purchased this, correct? So
Yes,
you knew the lot lines, you knew there was wetlands there, correct?
I did not know about the wetlands when I purchased the property, but yes, I knew it was a narrow lot.
And.
But I also knew it was a non-conforming buildable lot.
Right. And the other part there, you mentioned, it says it leaves little buildable area for a modest residential structure. Modest residential structure includes a guest dwelling, a pool, a weight room, a studio with a full bathroom in it.
Yes,
That's modest.
I think two things I would say. Modest is, from a square footage perspective, I think it's a quite modest home. Yes, I think somebody made a comment that when you look at the site plan, it looks awfully busy. I think if you were to put all this together, it would look like a ranch house, I guess, a low-lying ranch house. And I think the square footage is 2,200 square feet of livable space. So I mean, I think modest obviously is subjective. So but I don't think that would be considered a large house. The studio is, I work from home, only work from home actually in Providence, and I would here. I have a full bath because two reasons. One is if I have grandchildren one day, I want to have a bath somewhere on the property to be able to give them a bath, excuse me. And also in case I ever had an overnight guest, I could put them there. And the fitness center is simply, I like to come in the winter, and it's sometimes very hard to exercise in the winter. So it's a small space, but yes, I like to ride Peloton in the winter.
So the studio could be a bathroom then, if you said, to be able to put somebody in there to sleep.
If I ever had an overflow guest.
Could be there.
No, I would not be. I don't intend to have it a bedroom, but maybe it'll have a sofa with a pull-out or something that could convert if necessary. But it's meant to be an office.
I enjoy the layout on the one story.
Thank you. One thing that my neighbor, Paul Van Lent, who's an architect, said when I was reviewing the plans with him, is he said that this design is consistent with historic homesteads here on Block Island and other parts of New England, where you sort of start with one house and then maybe a shed is added or a barn, and you end up breaking up the you add buildings over years or generations, and they're kind of scattered around the property. And it also breaks down the scale of everything. And that was part of the consideration of what this design we developed.
I think that if you look at this site plan and you were forced to build within the building envelope, you wouldn't be required to come to zoning, and you would have this conglomeration of structures ranging from down near the 200-foot CRMC setback where the widest Meredith land is in steep slopes, and coming up and having other structures in this long corridor without being separated across the lot. So that's my viewpoint. Excuse me. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak for or against?
My name is Paul Van Lent, and I'm Mr. Massiello's neighbor. I think in general, Mr. Masiello has been very concerned with the landscape, the topography, and there's no question with the configuration of the lot that he deserves some relief. And he has been generous with his time, talking to his neighbors and listening to our concerns. And we have worked together to address a few concerns, and satisfactorily so. So as we wrote and we signed a statement there, we do support his application.
Thank you.
Jean-Pierre Van Wen, my brother, and I second his comments. Support the application.
Okay. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak for or against?
Hi, I'm Michael Fash, and I submitted a letter electronically. I just wanted to let you associate a face with that letter. We are Mr. Masiello's neighbors to the east, and we do appreciate the conversations that I've had with him, his concern for privacy. I'm starting to think that maybe he doesn't like the appearance of our house, but we think it's gorgeous. It's one of the older houses on the island. It dates back, as I said in the letter, to 1883. It has one of the historic plaques now on it. But in general, our initial concern and question was how the conglomeration of so many structures would affect the rural pastoral aspect of the neighborhood. We do think that Mr. Masiello is addressing that, but I think the issues before the board of setback are technical. It's beyond my expertise. I'll leave it to the board to consider how it affects the neighborhood in the long run. I'm convinced Mr. Masiello is doing his best to take that into account.
Thank you. Are we in consensus to close the public hearing? No further questions. I make a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. So done. Anybody want to volunteer to write this? All
We
right.
have to farm out.
What?
We have to farm out. We can talk about that after. We'll do the decision. So we have notes on a decision for the appeal by John Formica, Terrence Delaney and Darren Carolyn Gill. Plat, on the issuing of a building permit to Craig and Pamela Babcock, Plat 8, Lot 215, permit number B21531, dated August 4th, 2021, for construction of an addition to a single-family dwelling. I move to uphold the appeal by John R. Formica Jr., Terrence Delaney, and Darren and Carolyn Gill on this decision as just stated for the building official issuing a building permit to Craig and Pamela Babcock. This decision is based on the following findings of fact. 1, the property is located in the RB zone. 2, the building permit was issued on August 4th, 2021. It was based on plans submitted as an owner's exhibit D. 3, the proposed building meets the spatial dimensions and setbacks required in the RB zone. 4, the submitted architectural plans show a roof pitch of 6/12. Appellant's exhibit number 1 is a chart stating that the minimum pitch permitted must be 7/12. The submitted plans do not meet the minimum standard of roof pitch in the town of New Shoreman's building code. Therefore, I find the building official to have erred in issuing the building permit and uphold the appeal. Someone needs to second that.
Second.
Any discussion?
So now we're in November, and it's almost a technicality.
It was a technical, they didn't give us anything else to go on.
That's right.
So, okay, any other comments? Motion made, seconded, all in favor? Aye. Okay, you weren't here. Okay. Okay, I'll email it to you. You want to do that? Just take, yeah. Okay, so, does anybody want to write BI Harbor View?
Well, you do have some notes from Judith.
We do.
So I probably forward that to whoever.
Yeah,
Right.
No,
no,
no.
close it.
No.
I just think whoever does it needs to, we just need to really go over the application and the site plan. I'll do it, I'll get you this.
You want to show it to somebody?
How's everybody feeling about that?
I'm not involved in that.
Harbor View?
I don't have a problem.
Okay,
I don't have a problem with it.
okay. All right, you guys want to talk about?
Yeah.
Marcelo?
I think we, yeah. Bobby?
I think it's a great layout.
Okay.
For like one story.
Okay. Anybody want to write it? I know you volunteered me.
I know.
Okay. I can volunteer you.
This is my slowest time of the year, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me? I'll write it, yeah. What? Or do I want?
I was volunteering Rob, but
Oh.
he's shaking his head.
No, I'll write it.
Okay.
And this comes January, right?
January
Yeah.
meeting.
January comes really fast. I know it seems like it's a long time.
When you're writing decisions, it does, yes.
It's like here tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's no, we don't need it.
The last meeting.
We don't have anything backed up, right? Good.
Just your appeal, but you already scheduled that later.
Right.
And the, one of the attorneys didn't think they'd make this on.
Okay.
Then what?
For the appeal,
Yeah,
that's all that's pending right now.
you said one of the attorneys, what?
Couldn't make like a
Oh.
December meeting, I have to get some dates.
Okay,
This is your plan.
yeah.
We can do it in minutes if you're not.
Oh, we have-
So, but that's,
That's actually limitations on the appeal.
yeah, I think it's 10 days or.
These are minutes from,
It was just your.
our 5-minute meeting.
When was that? When was that?
It was in October.
Oh.
Oh, you missed it when Mark came in and yelled at us.
What happened?
Mark came in and yelled at us. It was really pretty.
Mark did?
Yeah.
Why? Oh, I did miss that. Well,
No, it was-
talk about that
That's so sad.
later. Really?
Make a motion to approve.
Yeah.
Minutes, October 27th.
Second.
Aye.
Oh, aye.
Right.
I will take this with me. What?
78.
Is it really? No wonder I was falling.
I know.
No wonder I was falling asleep.
Are you gonna cook pastries tonight?
I got a new cook. I went to this bakery in Portland. So good.
Oh, it's Paul?
Hi, Mark, how are you?